Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
A man who was deported to Haiti is a free man here in the Bahamas. Find out the details straight ahead.
DHS officials reveal that fire at the landfill is 50% contained.
3 men charged with murder before the magistrate's court.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Topping news tonight, a Bahamas-born man who was deported to Haiti is a free man tonight. This after a judge today ruled that Ronnie Jean Charles be released from the custody of immigration authorities pending the hearing of an application to stay his ruling made in the matter last week. Jared Higgs has the details.
He walked in flanked by immigration officers and left in the arms of his loved ones. 35-year-old Ronnie Jean Charles is a free man following a court hearing that failed to proceed this afternoon. John Charles was deported to Haiti in November of last year. Last week, Justice Gregory Hilton ruled that his constitutional rights were violated and ordered that he be issued a travel document to allow him to return to the Bahamas. He also ordered that he be granted status upon application. The matter took a turn on Saturday when an emergency stay of the judge's decision was granted, reportedly when Charles was en route to the Bahamas. As a result, Charles was taken into custody by immigration officials upon his arrival. Before a packed court today that included both Attorney General Carl Bethel and Minister of State for Legal Affairs Ellsworth Johnson, John Charles's attorney, Fred Smith QC, objected to the proceedings following the introduction of a new affidavit by Lauren Klein, counsel for the Attorney General's office. Smith said he would be minded to proceed with the respondent's new evidence at a later date, but he could not cooperate if his client was in unlawful custody. Klein then suggested a compromise, that Charles be released and report to the probation department once per week. Smith objected, asserting that his client was not charged with any crime. He also stated that any release should include a protection order preventing the immigration department from expelling Charles from the country. Klein argued that the reporting obligation was not invasive and, after consultation with the Attorney General, agreed to Charles's release, including an order preventing his deportation. In releasing Charles, Justice Hilton noted that part of his earlier ruling had already been complied with, that is, the issuance of the travel document. He added that the expectation is that the applicant would remain in the country and he saw no need to have the reporting condition in place. Outside of court, an exhausted-looking Charles was hugged by family members and supporters. He didn't have much to say to our cameras, except that it felt good to be home. His attorney, Fred Smith QC, commended the government.
I'm so glad that the government conceded and allowed Mr. Jean Roney to be a free man today without issue. That shows a great measure of responsibility on the part of the government. And I hope they address these situations in that fair way in the future.
Attorney General Carl Bethel also spoke with the media following Charles's release.
We fully expected that the question of whether the subject person, Mr. John Roney, would be remanded in custody, we felt that that would be a major issue, and that all things being determined, the fact is the question of his detention, the question of his removal from the Bahamas are presently before the Court of Appeal, and we don't feel the need to try and relitigate that issue here on an application for a stay.
Now, both parties will return to court on Thursday at 10 a.m. That's when the Attorney General's stay application is going to be heard. Reporting for our news, I'm Jared Higgs.
In other news, more than a week after a major fire erupted at the New Providence landfill, that fire is still burning. Heavy smoke from those flames caused havoc in nearby communities, blanketing homes, covering roadways during the early morning rush, and forcing the closure of 2 schools. Jasmine Brown reports.
The pits.
It's a sentiment that has become all too familiar from those directly impacted by fires at the New Providence landfill. And on Monday morning, residents in nearby communities woke up to thick white smoke blanketing their neighborhoods. This, combined with fog, created a thick blanket of smog over homes and businesses in Harrell Road, Yellow Elder, Stapleton Gardens, the Grove West, and Rock Crusher. We caught up with several people as they made their way through the heavy smoke.
It's hazardous. That's first thing in the morning you get up, you want to inhale something fresh, something clean. And I feel it's real hazardous. When I first heard this morning, I said to myself, must be the damn fire again.
In some way, I just thought they would have this under control.
but it's not.
Heavy smoke also forced the closure of H.O. Nash and St. John's College. Parents of St. John's students were notified by email early this morning. The school was in the direct path of the smoke. Principal Dr. Neveline Evans says the closure brought a screeching halt to plans set for the first day of Literacy Week.
At about 6:45, upon arriving to school, there was a low fog over the campus. And within 10 minutes, the entire campus was engulfed with smoke. I say smoke because you smell it. You don't smell fog, but you do smell smoke. And basically visibility was nil.
According to Dr. Evans, the cancellation impacted 850 students.
The safety and the health of our children are paramount.
The situation this morning stems from the after effects of a major fire that erupted at the New Providence landfill nearly 2 weeks ago. The flames sent fires and workers at the Department of Environmental Health Services scrambling to extinguish the fire that has been a thorn in the side of nearby residents for more than a week. This was the first major fire at the landfill since the fire of March 2017, which forced many residents to evacuate their homes for days due to nearby flames and thick black smoke. It is also the first significant blaze at the landfill since the Minnis administration took office. Former Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller, whose business Mario's Bowling Palace was covered in smoke this morning, says he is tired of the political rhetoric. He says it's clear the F&M and PLP are both lost when it comes to fixing the dump.
I mean, how long does it take to get proposals? How long does it take for you to assess proposals and pick one? You know, the rhetoric got to stop, man. Do your job. You're working for the Bahamian people now. This isn't a business you're running. This is the biggest business in the country. This affects the lives of the Bahamian people. And it affects our economy, because if guests decide not to go on the western side of New Providence because of the fire, we're in trouble. Those people need their jobs. Yeah. So I employ all of them. Sit around the table, get it done, so that you can take the burden and the pressure of the backs of the people who reside in these respective areas.
As this latest fire continues to burn, 111 Jubilee Gardens residents have filed a class action lawsuit against the government and Renew Bahamas, claiming their health and that of their families and the enjoyment of their homes have been impacted by fires and hazardous smoke from the New Providence landfill for years. The writ was filed by Fred Smith QC, who represents the group. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Thanks, Jasmine. Well, that fire at the New Providence landfill is only 50% contained, according to Senior Deputy Director at the Department of Environmental Health Services, Thomasina Wilson, who spoke with reporters on the dump site this morning. She also explained what caused the thick plumes of smoke covering neighboring communities this morning.
We have a lot of hot iron in the construction and demolition area of the landfill that we are working every day, late into the evening, to try to cool the iron. That's where most of the smoke is being generated. We're about 50% complete in terms of digging out and cooling it down and then covering it back up. Okay, the residential waste, which is over in the household section of the landfill, that is completely eliminated now, and we've completely covered that area down.
Wilson says DEHS has been taking the lead in battling the blaze, and crews have been working feverishly to contain it since the fire started 9 days ago. She could not say when residents would feel some relief, but insisted they are doing the best they can to ensure that happens soon.
We don't want to put a time frame on this because, you know, putting time frames causes you to kind of hold your feet to the fire. Because it's a process and we don't know what you're up against from day to day, all we could tell you right now is we're trying to, in a shorter space as possible, to get this dealt with. And we are really working hard at trying to get this under control.
Despite what everyone thinks.
Despite what everyone thinks. These guys, their feet to the fire. Their feet to the fire.
2 men were charged in the magistrate's court today in connection with the shooting death of a Plantaw Street man who was gunned down outside his home earlier this month. Giorgio Bain has the details.
3 young men in their early 30s are brought before the magistrate's court to answer to the charge of murder.
Appearing before Chief Magistrate Joanne Ferguson Pratt in Court Number 9 were 21-year-old Donovan Roll of Faith Avenue, seen in the red and blue shirt, and 23-year-old Berkeley Belfort of Flamingo Gardens, seen in the white shirt. The 2 men were charged with the January 24th murder of Shamiko Mackey. According to police reports, shortly after 10 p.m., a man was sitting in the doorway of his Irish Spring Court home when a vehicle pulled up and two men emerged. One of them was armed with a firearm. The gunman shot the man and jumped back into the vehicle and fled the scene. The victim was pronounced dead on the scene. Rolle and Belfort were not required to enter a plea. Prosecution will proceed by way of a voluntary bill of indictment. They were remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections and will return to court on March 20th for the beginning of trial. Reporting for R News, I'm Georgia Bain.
Well, a 21-year-old man from Curtis Street also appeared in the magistrate's court where he was charged with the January 20th murder of Milsaid Ulis on Rupert Dane Lane. According to police reports, a man was walking on Rupert Dane Lane around 5 a.m. when he was approached by a gunman who shot him and fled on foot. Ulis was pronounced dead on the scene. Travis Taylor, seen here in the gray shirt, was not required to enter a plea. He was represented by attorney Donna Major, who alleged that her client, while in custody, was beaten by officers, resulting in bruised ribs. However, she says he was not taken to hospital until 2 days later when the swelling had begun to subside. Major told the court that her client is now on pain medication. She asked that he be allowed to take his medication with him while on remand. The case will proceed by way of VBI. Taylor returns to court on March 20th. Well, days after Attorney General Carl Bethel accused Bahamas Harvest Church pastor Mario Moxie of calling him a liar, Bethel was front and center of the pastor's congregation Sunday, receiving a public apology. The two men got into a heated exchange last week over the dissemination of a proposed draft bill as government takes steps to criminalize marital rape.
Today, I'm so glad that he's here so I can publicly tell him to his face, I apologize to you, sir. You are...
The public apology came as Moxie was addressing the congregation at his church's 8 a.m. service, and days after a private phone call where Moxie apologized to the AG. Moxie and Carl Bethel butt heads at a recent town hall meeting after the pastor told those in attendance that he and Christian Council President Bishop Delton Fernander did not receive a draft of proposed changes to the Sexual Offences Act, despite suggestions from the AG that they had. Bethel accused Moxie of calling him a liar and insisted he had sent the document. The next day, the Christian Council president revealed that he had in fact received the draft via email, but hadn't seen it because he was traveling.
I'm a covenant man, and when I'm in the foxhole with somebody, I'm in the foxhole with somebody. I'm not going to lie for nobody, but I will defend and I'll protect whoever I'm in the foxhole with until the truth is discovered. And once the truth is discovered, I don't cover lies and inconsistencies. So the first thing I did was I made contact with the Attorney General, and I apologized. There was a problem with that. That was only between me and him.
Moxie said he and Bethel are good friends, adding that it meant a lot for the Attorney General to attend the service. Bethel, walking up to a standing ovation, accepted Moxie's apology.
As Christians, I think we all need to move on. An error was made on all parts, even by the good bishop. I accorded a mistake. A lapse of memory, whatever, because as Christians we must look at these things as way. And to you, my brother and pastor here, I must say that I have the highest respect for you.
In the end, the two hugged it out.
Thank you very much, Pastor.
Amen.
The pastor also used the opportunity to clarify his stance on the controversial topic of marital rape.
My position is the existing rape law, it's not a good idea to tweak that. In that law it says rape is violation as long as it's not their spouse, and the idea was to take not your spouse out of it, but that would change that's not enough. It doesn't go far enough because I don't need to get into all of that, but it just talks about impersonating a spouse, and of course a spouse can't impersonate themselves, so it doesn't make sense. And if you take that out of it, you change the whole context of our rape laws. So it's not a good idea to tweak that, so I do not support that.
Still to come on our news, a production in paradise. We take you behind the scenes of hit morning talk show live with Kelly and Ryan. Stay tuned.